The first Captain America movie since 2016 has arrived. So nearly 10 years later, with Sam Wilson as the frontman, does it deliver? What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Captain America Brave New World, or Captain America 4. This is the first Captain America movie with Sam Wilson headlining, not Steve Rogers. And it's the first MCU movie of 2025. I will not be spoiling anything, so don't worry about that, but I am going to give you my honest thoughts, if that's all right. Hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on this movie if you've seen it as of watching this video, and what your expectations are if you have not yet watched it. And of course, subscribe to that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean a lot. So, when it comes to Brave New World, this is a film that's been through the ringer in terms of post-production and the reported reshoots. I feel like a lot of that was blown out of proportion, but this movie has been discussed ad nauseum before it even came out just because of the behind-the-scenes production of the film. And so a lot of people had already made up their minds about the film before it came out. A lot of people had, their suspicions, myself included. I was not too excited for this one. I was like looking forward to it, but I wasn't like over the moon, and I was like, I just don't know. I had a gut feeling it might not be my thing. And so I'm pleased to say that walking out of this one, I enjoyed my time with Brave New World. Sure, I had my issues with it that I'll get into later in this video, but I'm gonna start with my pros. Now, what I'm about to say is not a direct comparison to the movie. I'm talking about the structures. To me, Brave New World is comparable to The Winter Soldier in terms of the way the movie plays out and similar themes and ideas. Now, I don't think they're really in the same ballpark in terms of movie. I know a lot of people have The Winter Soldier as like the best MCU movie. I'm not saying this is The Winter Soldier. I know at the surface level, it's a very easy comp to make. Like after the first trailer drop, people were like, oh, this is like The Winter Soldier. But when you actually watch the movie and you get down into the nitty gritty of the plot, they play out similarly, in my opinion. Obviously in the trailer, we see there's an assassination attempt on Thunderbolt Ross. Someone may or may not be pulling some strings behind the scenes. And so with Brave New World, there's definitely that conspiracy element and a lot of political intrigue in the film as well, which I find to be traits that are associated with The Winter Soldier. So I think the movies are structured similarly. I do not think they're the same movie. I'm just saying there are definitely noticeable similarities between Brave New World and Captain America the Winter Soldier. And of course, we got to talk about Captain America himself, Anthony Mackie, finally being able to headline a film as Sam Wilson. To me, this has always been the most logical route to take, and at the end of Endgame, it was a perfect, passing of the mantle from Steve to Sam Wilson. Then we got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a 6-episode Disney Plus show, one of the best, in my opinion, of all the MCU Disney Plus shows, that really shows him become Captain America by the end. And now he's full-on Cap, and people acknowledge him as Cap. It's cool to see him walk around town, and people be like, hey, thanks, Cap, or he'll have a conversation with, like, a military guy, and he'll be like, hey, good to see you, Cap. It really just makes him feel like he's Captain America, because he is, and this movie embraces that. Sam Wilson, over the course of this movie, is able to really solidify himself as the Captain America. There's a great line in the film I don't want to say, but I'll kind of paraphrase regardless, where it talks about how Sam Wilson's Captain America gives people someone to aspire to be like. Steve was his own person. Sam Wilson is his own person. They both can make their own way as Captain America and leave their own legacy. So I really did dig what they did with Sam Wilson in this movie, and I just want to see more of him. He's a leader naturally, and his character shines in this film. And when you go to a Captain America movie, obviously you're going to want to see action, and I think this movie's got it. It's definitely not the most memorable in terms of like, oh, that was a badass action sequence. Like if you want awesome action in the MCU, you're gonna find that in Civil War, in the Avengers movies, in The Winter Soldier. This movie's strong suit is by no means its action sequences, but we still get to see some really cool aerial sequences with Sam Wilson's Captain America, which has been, again, a trademark of not only this version of his Cap, but of his Falcon character since his first appearance in the MCU back in Winter Soldier. And so he gets to show off, with his wings, and he's got a nice little upgrade here with some vibranium tech, and so he goes to town. I'm not gonna lie, there's some really cool moments, the way that he's able to maneuver the shield around like tight corridors and close quarter combat, but also throw it at like missiles in the air. It's sick, I can't lie. Like as a fan, I'm just like, this is awesome to see. And his companionship with his partner Torres, Joaquin Torres, who's like the new Falcon here, is awesome. They got some buddy humor, and Sam's always really cared about those around him, dating back to, his partner that he lost way back when, Riley. And of course, he had a great relationship with Steve in his movies, and then Bucky in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Soldier, and so now he's got Joaquin Torres as his, right-hand man, and they have some great quips together. They've got chemistry that works for me, and I buy into their relationship. And despite all the reshoots that were reported for this film, and again, that behind-the-scenes drama, to me, I can't speak for everyone because I've seen conflicting views online, but to me, I can only speak for myself, I did not feel as though this movie was stitched together in some last-ditch effort to make the movie work. That's what I thought was going to be the case when I read all the reports, but when I sat down and watched it, it flowed together really well. In fact, I thought the movie's pacing was pretty top-notch. Like, it moved at a good pace. I never once was bored or sat there wondering, oh, what's the point of the scene? Like, it all flowed together well and felt put together, in my opinion, which, again, shocks me to say because I did not expect that going into this one, but it did remind me of, like, some of the Phase 2 MCU movies. I mean that in a complimentary way. A lot of the Phase 2 movies, they flow together well, like the Winter Soldier, like Guardians of the Galaxy, like even say, an Iron Man 3, which I'm by no means a huge fan of, but they have like a distinct structure and they have moments where you just get to see characters kind of hanging out. Like there's a scene early on in the movie where we see Joaquin Torres and Sam like training with Isaiah Bradley, more on him later, and it was like, this is just a cool, like, behind-the-scenes glimpse at these characters' lives in the MCU. Not every scene in the cinematic universe has to be, of utmost importance with, the fate of the universe on the line. Like, we can just see characters hang out. Think in Age of Ultron. We see these characters hanging out at a party, and they're all trying to lift Mjolnir. And they're hanging out at Hawkeye's cabin, chopping logs outside with an axe. Like, moments like that are what make us really care about these characters. And to me, this movie had those, where we see, some banter back and forth between the trio I just mentioned and their training. Like, moments like that, them riding in a limo to the White House, they're not meaningless scenes. They build up the characters and make them feel more personable with the audience so that you can relate to them more. Now let's talk about the elephant, or should I say the Hulk in the room. Red Hulk is in this movie, played by Harrison Ford. Obviously, he has assumed the role of Thunderbolt Ross after William Hurt's passing, rest in peace. But Harrison Ford makes the character his own while still maintaining a lot of the traits that Thunderbolt Ross had earlier in the MCU when he was portrayed by William Hurt. We may or may not even get, in the opening 5 minutes, a funny little moment that kind of acknowledges this is still Thunderbolt Ross. I gotta laugh, I won't lie. But he definitely approaches this character in his own way. He is Harrison Ford, so this grumpy old man persona that he kind of puts on works for this role. But there's also some emotion with this character as well, as post the events of the Incredible Hulk, he has essentially become estranged from any loved one near and dear to him, and so he's wrestling with that internally while also being the new president of the United States, and some things may or may not be going on with him behind the scenes that could be affecting his mood as well. So he's dealing with a lot. He's got a lot on his plate, but he also wants to work with Sam Wilson potentially, so there's a lot of moving parts here again at the political level, in positions of power, and so I was just intrigued by all of that. And the visual effects of Red Hulk are probably the best VFX in the entire movie. I rewatched The Incredible Hulk, and it's safe to say, like, the VFX for Hulk designs have come a long damn way since 2008, because I'm not taking shots or throwing strays at The Incredible Hulk here, but the visuals there can be very hit or miss. For the Hulk design, I'm speaking, not even just the movie as a whole, but with Red Hulk here, it was top-notch stuff, and they've really kind of mastered the Hulk design, at least on the big screen. I can't really speak to She-Hulk. And I gotta mention Sidewinder. What little we got of him, played by Giancarlo Esposito, was just such a treat. This man is one of the great character actors of our time who fully commits to roles, and in the little screen time that he does have in this film, he's able to do so much with it, in my opinion, and I want to see more of him. I want to see more of Sidewinder in the MCU. And a big critique of this post-Endgame era of the MCU has been every project feels disconnected, like it's not working towards something. Well, this movie brings in elements of past films in The Incredible Hulk, but also even Eternals mentions. Not too big on the Eternal stuff, but as we all know from the trailers and marketing, a certain object, or should I say island, has arose post-Eternals, and that plays a pretty pivotal role in the main plot, but it's not like you need to watch Eternals to understand this movie. It takes one little thing from it. And of course, it takes elements from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and past projects with Sam Wilson, but it feels as though we are moving forward in the cinematic universe towards something greater. And this movie's sole purpose isn't just focused on setting up the next project. It has a nice balance of you know, having its own plot and focusing on Sam as Captain America and him getting to the bottom of this, sort of investigating this mystery, but all the while we are sort of moving towards something greater. Even with the post-credit scene, I feel as though it's a return to form for the MCU in terms of setting up what's to come. While still being a bit vague, sure, but I did appreciate that we are clearly moving towards something in the cinematic universe. Now, I had a lot to say about this movie that I dug, but I do have my issues. This is not a perfect movie. I have my flaws, and I'd say one of the biggest is that certain characters are a little underdeveloped. You know, I give my praise to a lot of the heroes, but on the villain side of things, specifically a certain character who I won't name by name just because I don't want to be spoilery, even though you know he's in the movie if you've been following. His role in the film, this certain character I'm referring to, he's a bit underdeveloped, and certain moments regarding his character do feel rushed through, specifically with his plotting. There could be some conveniences in the writing room, you could argue, and I would not be opposed to that viewpoint because some things just line up, and if you get down to the real nitpicky nature of it all, you could say, well, this character, hasn't he been around in the MCU forever? Why has he not been, you know, more prominent? But I don't want to be that guy. That's annoying to me. Because they do explain why said character hasn't been able to sort of be out in the world. Anyway, more on that when I talk spoilers down the road. I'll also say that some of the green screen and CGI elements were noticeably iffy. I won't say it's the outright worst we've seen, because if you guys have watched Black Widow, there's a horrendous use of green screen in that film. But there are moments where you can tell, oh, okay, this is just pretty blatantly a green screen. It didn't like take me out of the movie, but I was like, oh yeah, that shot right there, that's the one that, Again, I'm not gonna harp on the VFX. You guys know in the MCU, and frankly a lot of big budget movies nowadays, the visual effects just not as top tier as they once were, oftentimes because of the VFX artists having to meet deadlines that are completely unreasonable. So I understand it, but at the same time, I do have to acknowledge it. And to me, it was just iffy. Now, Red Hulk looks out of this world, in my opinion, but there are some moments, I will say, with, you know, masks on characters that felt a little Quantumania, if you will, visually. The green screen background, like the depth of shots, looks a little wonky at times. And I'll say this is probably the first MCU movie in years, I want to say since Black Widow, where the trailers showed way too much, in my opinion. Like, I watched all the marketing for this film, and I will say straight up, I don't feel like they had a lot more they could have shown in marketing without showing you all the big moments. Now, there are surprises in this movie, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, usually when it comes to the MCU's marketing, like, things that are later in the movie are kind of saved for the movie, and I feel like they showed a bit too much in the marketing here. Now, that's not really a knock at the movie, it's more just something I noticed. I felt that way. I talked to others who disagreed and felt that no, that's not the case, but I feel like they did show a bit too much in the marketing. But overall, I'm pleasantly surprised by this one, guys. I could have sworn a few months ago, based on just Twitter reactions to this movie, that it was going to be a steaming pile of shit. And I kind of went in with those expectations. I was like, I just don't think this is going to be anything. I walk out and I can confidently say it's better than a good batch of the movies we've gotten post-Endgame. It's a well put together movie, in my opinion. It has, you know, phase 2 MCU vibes, and Sam Wilson cements himself as Captain America here. So it's got those heroic fist pump moments and heart, in my opinion. I feel like this movie has an emotional core, with it being Isaiah Bradley's character. He, you know, is very important to Sam Wilson, obviously. His role in this film, I'd say, might just be the emotional core. So it's a solid watch. It is not going to blow your socks off, but it's showing a lot of improvement in the MCU in terms of theatrical releases, and it is far from being one of those outright bad movies we've gotten in the post-Endgame era. Again, there were some standout moments. Anthony Mackie crushed it as Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, and overall it was an entertaining watch. I'd say it's a middle-of-the-pack MCU movie. Not every MCU movie is gonna join that top 10. I mean, you look back, Phase 1 and 2, a lot of those movies are middle of the pack to lower pack. There's 35 films in this franchise. Now, do I wish this was a bit better? Yeah, sure. I wish that it could have reached the heights of, like, Civil War or The Winter Soldier, but that's really not possible. No franchise has ever really done that consistently. So with 35 movies, it's pretty damn difficult to do. I like the direction the cinematic universe is heading, and this film gave me hope for what's to come. Thunderbolts is up next, so I look forward to that, but I enjoyed this one. I'll say it. I enjoyed this one, and I will probably be seeing it again, who's to say. But that does it for my review of Captain America Brave New World. I'll have more to say down the road when I can get into spoiler territory. I might even have a podcast episode coming out this week on it with Cam. But what do you guys think if you've seen it? What are your expectations if you have not yet watched it? Hit that like button, comment all of your thoughts down below, and of course subscribe and hit that notification bell. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.